okay?
I don't know. I'm kind of fucked up in general, so it's hard to gauge.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Underrated Podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss the films that we feel are underrated, underappreciated, and even the ones that have just slipped under the radar and passed most people by. My name is Derek McDuff. With me today is fellow member of the Undercast company, Ariel Ortiz.
Hello.
We also have a special guest. Joining us today is filmmaker Justin Joseph Hall of Fourwind Films. Films like the award-winning Prologue have been featured in festivals around the world, and additionally, he hosts the podcast Feature and a Short, so thank you for being here, Justin.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is fun, and thanks for letting me propose a movie, too. That was even more fun.
Yeah, like you're saying, Justin did pick the film we're talking about today, which is Death to Smoochy, a 2002 black comedy focusing on the seedy underworld of children's entertainment television, directed by Danny DeVito. The film stars the late great Robin Williams, Ed Norton, as well as Kathleen Keener, Jon Stewart, and Danny DeVito himself. The film, which follows an ousted entertainer out for revenge, was a disappointment both financially and critically, with only a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, and only made about $8 million on a $50 million budget. But despite all of this, it has earned a number of loyal fans over the intervening years. Justin, since you chose the film, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about why you love it?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I think it has to do a lot with, well, number one, the story is amazing. And the way that they fit together lists, 16 different side characters and the two main characters. I just think it's like a very, very solidly written story that I can't believe that they bring the Irish family into fruition later in the story. I thought they were just a joke for 10 seconds, and all of the characters come in to be important in the overall story. And then I also just like the performances. Obviously, Robin Williams and anything where he can be goofy. And this one, I mean, when he's his character is a disingenuine children's entertainer, which is I think just like a perfect role for him. And then, frankly, I've just had a crush on Kathleen Keener since I ever saw her. So.
Thank you. Oh my god. Yes.
So she's an amazing actress, and she knows how to do comedy. She can do drama. I think she does so well in comedy because she's so great in drama, and she has beautiful eyes. So what can you do? You know. I believe anything she says. But yeah, so I just think it's like an absolutely flawless story, and such an interesting cast. And then Danny DeVito also, I mean, he does he directs in an easy way to edit and in post, where, they're like reverse shot, even when people are falling on the ground in these comic falls or whatever. But it works, and he paces it out. I mean, it's so fast paced and never really relents for the entire. How long is it? 90 minutes? 2 hours?
Yeah,
it's almost 2 hours.
It's a good, quick movie. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I love it.
Yeah,
I'm also totally into anything dark or disturbing, and this is also funny on top of that. So it's great.
Yeah, no, I'm a really big fan of dark comedies, as well as anybody who's listening to this podcast knows. Like, that's kind of my jam. This is a movie that I had seen bits and pieces of it over the years. Like, it was always on Comedy Central, I feel like, for like 10 years, especially when Jon Stewart was hosting The Daily Show. They're like, oh yeah, like, let's put this on, whenever. I just remember seeing that promo, just hearing Robin Williams over and over, just, I'm a wicked man who's done wicked acts. Like, I heard that on so many commercials. And when he said in the movie, I'm like, oh, it's a thing. And I'd seen bits and pieces of it. Like, I remember seeing like the Nazi rally and stuff, and just like random parts, but I had never seen the movie back to front. So it's good to be like, okay, put the pieces together and kind of watch this. And like you said, I do think that, the Robin Williams does bring this kind of like energy that not really anybody else would be able to bring to this character, where he does kind of have this like, he puts on this show and he's this kind of like bigger than life Rainbow Randolph, but he's got this like real just darkness to the character, and you're just like, it just kind of, he slips into those voices and he does all these things, but you kind of are glad that he gets redeemed at the end. Like, he's a good guy. I'm not usually a big Edward Norton fan, but I actually thought he did pretty good in this. I like that there's hints that he kind of had this darker past, and it kind of comes out at the end where he's like about to shoot the guy in the head, and he talks about how he had to go to anger management, and that's kind of like where the crux of this character that he's invented came from, where the rhino came from, and just I love all the just kind of like weird just sight gags and just dark humor in it. Really unique. I can see why this movie, did not do very well at the box office, because it is just like dark and bizarre, and I think Dan DeVito is he's an actor's director. Him obviously being like a really prolific actor, he knows how to work really well with his fellow actors and get all these great performances out of everybody, for sure.
For sure.
So, as somebody who grew up as a child of these kind of like child entertainers, and then also I had seen this movie like essentially right after it came out. My grandmother had like the Miramax, Showtime, HBO, and I think it played on one of those channels, and so like it was always on in that regard too, because they have like a certain set of movies. So yeah, so I've known this movie for a while. When you suggested, I was like, interesting choice. Okay, like yeah, like and then yeah, like I said, like I was a child of these like generation of entertainers. Barney and Mr. Rogers to a nicer degree, Reading Rainbow, all the PBS classics.
Classics.
Yeah, and they had that formula of like, oh, it starts off with the same song, and then they like learn a lesson or something like that, and then it goes on to the closing song and stuff. But yeah, like rewatching it right now, I'm like you said, it is so fast paced. It's like it's still very interesting of a movie. And then I was thinking like, this is just very weirdly like both a natural successor to Matilda, which was Danny DeVito's like first movie of directing, and then also like the opposite of Matilda in a way. So it plays both sides, and like yeah, it's just like showing the dark side that Robin Williams had to his comedy, especially his stand-up. He had elements of his stand-up that were very dark, but humorous, and this kind of like definitely built on that, and like and then yeah, like with the Jon Stewart of it all being in it, I still remember that classic Daily Show clip where Matt Damon is there and he's like or it was either the Daily Show or when that short stint when he was like the Tonight. Oh no, it was the Daily Show, and like he's like, well, at least it wasn't Debt to Smoochy, because like Jon Stewart's like ragging him about like another stupid I think it was like Stuck on You to Matt Damon. Like, Stuck on You was so bad. And he's like, well, at least it wasn't Debt to Smoochy.
Yes, I think that's right.
Yeah. And then it just like floored Jon Stewart. Like he couldn't come back from that. Yeah, it's just such a... It's one of those movies that stick with you, like, without you knowing it, like, because rewatching it right today, it was just very much like, oh yeah, I remember those lines, I remember that, and like you said, it's so dark, and for me, like, I enjoy like Edward Norton's like especially his run in the Wes Anderson movies, like it's this kind of like little subdued version of this character. Yeah, it's similar but a bit more subdued, where this is just flat out like dumbass. Like not dumbass, but simpleton, yeah. And then yeah, I did enjoy like getting those like little kind of hints of like, oh yeah, he did have a dark past, but not enough like to like be like like scandalous and stuff like that, but yeah, and like, was there Catherine
Keener?
Keener's character is just like for to start off with, I was like, she's so bitchy and stuff like that, and then like she kind of softens up, and like the reason why she is bitchy is because she's trying to keep herself from falling into that, like, because she's like essentially like a groupie of these kind of characters and stuff. So but yeah, it's definitely an interesting turn on something that, I grew up with, and I'm sure that there was some kind of like scandals, but for the most part, those kind of those actors were good people, hopefully.
Oh, Barney,
But
I remember. Like, there's
Barney
a
might
whole
be a controversy. I know Elmo's a
Yeah.
controversy.
Yeah.
But at least we got
Oh,
Mr.
yeah.
Rogers, Captain Kangaroo, and
Yeah, and thank God Steve came
and
came out of the woodwork and just like told us we were all doing
Mhm.
great like a week ago.
yeah,
You
yeah.
want to hear
Philip
a crazy
Norton.
story about Steve that I have? Is that
Yes, please.
I got invited to his party one time, and I went over to his house. This is true, and it was like a mile from where I live now. And we went there, and he has this place in Williamsburg, and it's a long kind of apartment. And then he also has like this rooftop with fake grass, and it was like made. It was really cool, and all this food was out. And I just moved to New York, and I had a friend in town, and we were like, oh my God, we're at Steve's house, and he's friends of my relative, Marcellus Hall, and we're like, oh my God, it's Steve from Blue's Clues. He's like, oh yeah, he used to do this show or whatever, you know it? And I was like, yeah, my little brother watched it all the time, blah blah blah. And we actually snooped through the house and we found he had the orange chair in his house. And
Oh
we
my
Oh, man.
gosh,
we sat down and took pictures, so it was pretty cool.
man!
And then I met him.
That's really cool.
And he
That's
actually said,
awesome, man. I'm very jealous.
yeah. And he actually said he left. Oh, I found this out from Mark, but he left the Blue's Clues because he was
'Cause his hair.
balding and
Yep.
he didn't.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
He wrote
yeah.
articles and stuff about it too.
Yeah,
After.
it's
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Right, that's
It's
crazy,
just
right?
like yeah.
So when I
That's
saw
why
him,
he's
I
wearing
like
a
didn't
turned
even
hat.
into
recognize him because he had no hair.
I think that's why he was able to come back, because kids are more understanding of balding people.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I've seen my dad. I know where I'm going, so
Yeah, he wore a hat to kind of cover up. But
yeah.
I'm sure like kids nowadays would be like, "No, you're my dad." Like
Yeah.
like you look like my dad. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, this movie definitely is like a take that you would not definitely. I have to give it its originality, because like who in the heck would have thought of this idea?
Yeah.
Yeah, because this was at least before, like, I don't know if it was like after the Barney thing, but this was at least before like the Elmo thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I feel like it came off of, is like, oh, what if Barney was even, I don't know. But what is that? You guys had a controversy about Barney? I didn't hear about that.
I never heard of this.
Apparently he like yelled at a bunch of kids, like he cussed at a bunch of kids on some live set or something. Like one of the Barney performers like freaked
Classic.
out. It was just like, fuck your little kids or something like that. Like terrified a bunch of children and traumatized them or something. It might have been just an urban legend that I heard, growing up, but like that's something I always heard was like Barney lost it one day and just like.
That's funny. I looked up the writer just because we're talking about him so much, Adam Resnick, and he wrote Cabin Boy as well, and he was SNL and stuff. So
I haven't heard.
Okay. That makes sense.
okay, sorry, I was just gonna say before you mentioned Jon Stewart, both of you guys mentioned Jon Stewart and his acting, and I just like I gotta say that is probably the reason why I can't give this thing perfect score, 10 stars. I looked up, and the reason why I nominated is because these things it's 6.3 on IMDb and really low on Letterboxd, like a 3 or something. And but Jon Stewart's performance is so abysmal. Like he's like knows he's acting, and he thinks it's funny that he's on screen. Every time that he's on screen, you're like, what? Calm down, Jon Stewart. You've been on camera before.
Yeah, I love Jon Stewart, but he's not good at this.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like one thing I totally had forgotten that he was in it. and then we came on. That's when I remembered the clip of like, oh yeah, Matt Damon. Um, but yeah, it's just like his part could definitely not have like even existed. Like, I mean, for the most part, he was with Danny DeVito, and Danny DeVito alone could have just had that subplot. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally
Kind of a
true.
superfluous character, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, I think that kind of changing course here, but I think that this is a really interesting movie because there's basically like kind of like three kinds of like main character arc kind of movies. Like, there's the ones you see all the time, which is like a positive arc, like a character goes through a positive change, and then there's a few of them that are like the negative change, like The Godfather 2, like somebody gets worse. And then there's the movies that are like the flat arcs, which you see in like like the '70s Superman movies, what the Chris Reeves version, or like Ted Lasso is a character that's like that. Somebody who just like stays the same, but kind of like changes everybody around them for the better. And this movie does that, but it almost goes into like a negative. Like like you see him like kind of like take Rainbow Roundabout or Nora, like all these like really just like jaded, cynical people who've done these bad things and just kind of like turn them into like better people, especially with Nora. I think that was like one of the my favorite things about the film was just seeing Kathleen Keener, just kind of like her performance from going to this, from this like very, very cynical person to kind of like somebody who is ready to just kind of like believe in goodness again. And, at the end, she's kind of the one who pulls him back from the edge. And I really like that it was, even though it was such a dark film, because usually when you see those kind of like flat arc, quote unquote, characters, it's in something that's a lot more uplifting, than this, but this is a really dark film, and to kind of mix that dark film with such a like character that is so inspirational, this Ted Lasso-esque almost figure, albeit with a dark past, was a really interesting mixture that was probably one of the things about the film that kind of most intrigued me.
Yeah, for sure. I think going back to that relationship with those two, I think they started early. And you can tell Edward Norton's just being kind, whatever, and she's like offset, and then slowly the sexual tension goes in there. I mean, you assume, they're both good-looking people, and well, they always kind of like allude to it, and they pretend like it's not there, and they slowly develop it. And a lot of those scenes are really long. They're sitting and talking in the office for a long time, and nothing's really happening except for character development and really setting the sexual tension between the two. Not like it's still a comedy. It's not like a steamy film, and when they do have sex, it's just like the silly they have like
Tim Powers move.
Exactly, like a stupid curtain, and they're like diving down at each other or whatever. But I think that both of them together, I mean, that's because they're both great drama actors, and I think Danny DeVito let them do that. But, I don't think you see scripts that very often. I mean, it's something like Breathless you see where it's just like character development in one room and having conversations. But I think that's what really sold it is the love story and then just the great writing that everything kind of interweaves together with all of the side characters, even Jon Stewart's character, which we don't need.
Yeah, absolutely. And you like really buy their chemistry. Like, you see some movies it's like, okay, like you're supposed to be together because you're the two leads, and then sometimes it feels kind of forced, but you're just kind of like waiting. You're just like, and when she shows up at that house that one time, and you're like, oh, and they're like reminiscing. You're like, and they almost kiss, but she's kind of like pulls away. You're like, oh, what's gonna happen here? And then they just kind of make you wait just a little bit longer. It's one of those movies that just kind of really, you're just like, oh, come on, are you gonna kiss? Are you gonna kiss? All right, and you're just waiting, and then when it finally happens, you're like, okay, you can kind of breathe again.
But it doesn't feel corny, which I think is great.
Yeah. It feels very natural. Like the actors definitely have some really natural chemistry between them, for sure, I would say.
Yeah, just a roller coaster of a movie. Like he's nonstop. You hold on tight, and there's all these different character arcs. There's the Rainbow Randolph and then Smoochy and Nora, and then the Irish mob and all that, and it's just like such insanity, and it just builds and builds and builds, but it's like doesn't topple. It just stands its ground, and then and yeah, and then it hits all these like different like somewhat stereotypical, but all these different beats. You know, you have like the love story, you have the ending kiss in Times Square and stuff like that. But yeah, it feels a bit more natural than like it getting shoved down your throat.
Yeah, and I would totally give that to Danny DeVito for he did it in Matilda, and I would argue, like you said, you know, this is darker, but Matilda is sort of a dark comedy in itself. I mean, destroying people or whatever, but I just think after I saw Death to Smoochy, and then I think I had already seen Matilda, but when I found out that when I looked up Death to Smoochy, I'm like, Danny DeVito directed? That's crazy. Back when I watched it, like in 2004 or something. And then I was like, I want to see more stuff by Danny DeVito, but apparently this was such a box office flop that we got to get him directing a few more things by celebrating this work, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he did help with like when Matilda the musical was created and stuff like that. He helped with the development of that and like had some like um background kind of like directing on that, and that's why that musical is like really good too, and it is a different interpretation of his movie too, but it's yeah, definitely would be awesome to for him to come back and do something, again, because like Matilda was one of my favorite movies as a kid, and it still stands up to today of just how you know beautifully it is directed, and how it handles Roald Dahl's like more like his taking Roald Dahl's like mysticism, but also like grounding it a bit more in realism, and I think that's what he kind of did here too. He like grounded like this mysticism of children's television, and then like kind of brought it down to a lot more of a real kind of story in a twisted way.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Yeah, because he only did one other movie, full-length feature after.
Yeah, it looks like I was trying to see if he did. Yeah, he only did one of this. I don't even know if he did any episodes of It's Always Sunny or anything. Like,
no, I don't think he ever did that. I just looked.
Yeah.
It said he did one TV movie, and then he did the one with Duplex with
Oh, Duplex is a weird one too. Ben Stiller and Drew Barrymore.
Yeah. I haven't seen that. You seen that?
Yeah, it's very weird.
I haven't seen that
It's
movie
like
since
this.
probably 2005.
If you like Death to Smoochy, you would like that one. Mhm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta put that on then, because after that he's just done shorts very intermittently. But
Mhm.
I guess he's pretty much been employed from Always Sunny probably since about then, right? Like when did that start? 2000,
Yeah.
2006 or something?
Yeah.
That's been on
And then
forever. Yeah, 2006. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and he's him and his wife are really big producers. Like they produce a good amount of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's like one of those guys who just kind of like does everything in Hollywood, like acts, directs, produces. I think he's even done some writing at some point. Like he's just kind of like, he does whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I mean, and he has such a. That's what I think that's so amazing is like, okay, he's always entertaining, and what did we watch Junior last year or whatever, and that movie is also, I would say, it's underrated. You know what you're getting with Junior. So most Danny DeVito movies, I think, are underrated, but he just like makes the film great because he knows how to make any scene believable, and it's not like he's not incredibly intense or whatever as a person. You just believe everything he says, and I think the same thing when you direct it. He has this fluidity with whatever he does, whether or not it's like over the top or silly or or you're cutting back and forth like 5 times for no reason, or doing sex scene behind a curtain or whatever. You're just like, oh, I believe it, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it makes sense for him to kind of just do this, direct this movie, which is kind of just, it's TV inside, kind of like behind the scenes in TV, but, him being, that's where he got to start. Taxi, you know, behind the scenes in like TV, and so he knows the kind of like, you know, the back alley, all the stuff with the producers and everybody has all these dark secrets. So I think he was definitely the right fit to kind of deliver this kind of movie.
Definitely.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on the film, guys, before we wrap up here?
Nah, man, I would go see it.
Yeah, go see it. Get some orange juice with some alfalfa drops in it, and have a wild time. You know, blast off.
And that's one thing I will say is I think that Ed Norton is really good when he is being very earnest, like this movie. And he is always, like you said, he's always in the Wes Anderson stuff, and he's usually a very kind of like this, very just kind of dork, you know, like just this really nice dork in all the Wes Anderson movies, and I think that's when he's at his best, you know.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. If you like him in this, definitely go and watch Moonrise Kingdom. His
I
character
love
in that
Moonrise
is
Kingdom.
like is essentially
I love that movie.
Is essentially like kind of like a if you know this guy's ancestor or something.
I'm a huge Ed Norton fan as well. I just think that he's like, I don't know, he does drama well too, and that's why I think he makes this. I don't think he's a particularly funny guy, but he works in the comedy because the writing was so good, and I think because Danny DeVito can make him be like that. But yeah, when you guys said Moonrise Kingdom, I didn't even think about it. But to me, it's like, almost the exact same character, very different lighting as that the Smoochy is about. I mean, it's a dark comedy, but literally it's lit in pretty dark like the entire time. I mean, you're in back alleys the whole time or on the stages and whatever. But I like him and all that stuff too. I mean, that's the thing is I think the cast and Catherine Keener, if you go watch her films, Danny DeVito. If you go Edward Norton, I mean, Robin Williams, I didn't even say first. I mean, it's like, I couldn't believe the cast when I first saw it. And then it's like, I don't know why people don't talk about this movie more. So I'm glad that we could do that tonight.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And then
I just looked up, he's going to be in French Dispatch, but he's also going to be in Knives Out. Knives Out 2, Edward Norton.
Oh, that
cast. He might hit some kind of like, comedy a bit more higher than 2.
I saw this tweet a while ago, and it's like fully vaccinated people can now join the cast of Knives Out too.
Yeah. It's gonna be awesome, man.
Oh, I can't wait. That first one was amazing. Seeing it in theaters and the sound mix of like Daniel Craig, hearing Daniel Craig in the theater or whatever, and I don't know, it was such a fun. I mean, it was like a better produced Clue, which is an amazing, I don't know. That's really great.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, thank you everyone for listening, and thank you again to our guest, Justin Joseph Hall. Justin, where can people find more about you, find some information about you and your films? Yeah,
you can follow us on at Fourwind Films. That's FOURWINDFILMS. Or, if you like podcasts, which obviously you do, check out Feature in a Short. Everywhere that you get underrated, you can find Feature in a Short. So you can find me there. And then this month, actually, if you're in New York or in Illinois, my short documentary series called Marcellus Hall, an Artist in New York City, will be playing mid-November at New York Web Fest and also Lake County Film Festival. So if you're there, come say hi to me, shout us out on social media, or go to our website and find our email there. So thanks, guys. I really appreciated. That we get to talk about Death to Smoochy. I was wondering who I can chat about it with.
Yeah.
It was good. I'm glad you brought this one to me. It was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
But yeah. Once again, Ariel and I have been the Undercast Company, and if you enjoyed what you heard from us, you can follow us as well on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that. And if you have any suggestions, like Justin did, you can let us know either by emailing us at undercastcompany@gmail.com or join our Discord and let us know there. Don't forget to check out Ariel's other podcast that she does the first of every month, You've Never Seen, where we take a look at films that we really should have seen at this point that we haven't got around to yet. If you feel free, if you'd like to subscribe to our Patreon for as low as $1 a month, if you'd like what you hear, but just listening to the show and mentioning it to a friend helps us so much. But once again, thank you everybody for listening, and I'll see you in another life.
Thanks for being amazing.